I bet you aren't watching the most informed team in European rugby right now. Czechia are on fire and play again this weekend. In this video, we lift the lid on the team setting the pace in the Northern Hemisphere and look how their game will affect the world rankings this weekend. Plus, we preview the 5 other games taking place this weekend as Rugby Europe's second and third tier of competition kicks back into action. Let's get to it. Okay, before we get into their form, let's take a quick look at their history as a bit of a primer to set the context for their current performances. Rugby came to the then Czechoslovakia about 100 years ago in 1926 when the first club game took place. The first international came a year later against Romania, although some sources dispute this since the rugby union was only formed a year later in 1928. One of their great post-war moments came in 1949 when they beat Italy in Prague in front of 40,000 spectators who were there to also watch a football game taking place later that day. The country split into the Czech Republic and Slovakia in 1993, and the team had their best post-split period from about 2003 to 2008. In 2002-2003, they reached the later stages of Rugby World Cup qualifying, and then between 2004 and 2008, they competed in the Rugby Europe Nations Cup First Division. That is the tier just below the Six Nations and what we now call the Rugby Europe Championship. Since then, they've fallen back down into the second and third tiers of Rugby Europe competition and only regained their status to the second tier of Rugby Europe competition, which is now called the Rugby Europe Trophy, back in 2023. Since then, they finished third on 2 occasions, and as of April 2026, as we sit here now, they are top of the trophy standings, looking to win the competition for the first time. Okay, so why am I saying that this team in the third tier of European competition, who haven't been back to the second tier in nearly a decade, why am I saying they are the most informed team right now? Let's look at the stats. Since getting back into the trophy division in 2023, they have been on a great run of form. They've played 14 games, won 10 and lost 4. Those 4 losses have all been with a narrow margin, the average being 10 points, with some close losses against Sweden and Poland in particular. They are now in top spot in the trophy as a result of 6 successive wins, which include wins against Sweden and Poland, to put them in great position to gain promotion to the Rugby Europe Championship above their competitors. Since the 2023-2024 season, when they gained promotion back to the trophy, they have scored 41.3 points per match on average. They've also scored 4.9 tries per match in that time. On both of these metrics, they actually outperform France, who are the current back-to-back champions in the Six Nations. Now, ranking-wise, Czechia are also getting back to their best. Their highest ever ranking is 28th, a spot they reached in March 2011 when they beat Germany 29-23. After that, they sank down the rankings again to reach 53rd, their lowest ever ranking in April 2013. They recovered to reach 30th in November 2017, but since then have been muddling along between 34th and 40th. Over the last year, however, they have climbed 5 places, from 34th all the way up to 29th. In that time, their ranking points have also climbed from 50.89 to 54.78. They are now the highest ranked team in the trophy competition and are within touching distance of reaching 28th, which is currently held by Switzerland. This weekend, they meet Mexico for the first time ever in a friendly international, which they will use as preparation for their vital clash against Denmark next weekend. Now, the Mexicans are themselves a very interesting story. They currently sit in 38th in the ranking, one spot below their highest ever ranking of 37th, which they reached last year after beating Trinidad and Tobago. The problem for Mexico is game time. They have only played 7 matches since 2021, so this is a vital opportunity for them to get some game practice in. The Czechs are firm favourites and cannot move up the rankings with a win, but a loss would obviously drop them down quite a few spots. Their focus must be on next week's clash against Denmark, by the end of which they could be back in the second tier of European competition. Okay, so now you know who the most informed team in Europe is right now, but there are a host of other games also taking place. Let's preview all of them now. There are 3 competitions running this weekend: the Men's Europe Trophy, the Women's Europe Trophy, and then the conference. For the Women's Trophy, which is the first game that takes place this weekend, we see Sweden taking on Germany in Trelleborg. This match will be followed by Sweden versus Denmark in the Men's Trophy, so we have a nice double header going on there. The match between the women's teams are a straight shootout for the title, as there's only 3 teams competing in the trophy competition this year. Both teams have played and beaten Finland, so the winner here will take the title. This is not only a shootout for the title, but it has a lot on the line for the rankings. Sweden sit in 21st and Germany only sit a place below them in 22nd. Because the ranking gap is so small, the results basically mirror each other in the effect they could have on the world rankings. If Sweden were to win by 15 points or more, they would move up to 20th, while Germany would move down to 23rd. Inversely, if Germany were to win by 15 points or more, they would go to 20th and Sweden would drop 2 places to 23rd. A narrow win for Sweden, which means a win by less than 15 points, would keep the teams where they are, whereas a narrow win for Germany would see the teams swap places. In the Men's Trophy, we have Sweden taking on Denmark, who were promoted to the trophy last year. Sweden currently sit in 33rd, while Denmark sit in 57th. The Danes have struggled since getting promotion to the trophy, but they beat Lithuania convincingly to increase their chances of staying up. Sweden, on the other hand, have been doing a bit better, but lost in their last game convincingly against Czechia. Sweden dominated their last encounter back in 2011 when they beat the Danes by 55 points to 15. The ranking gap is such that Sweden can't gain anything from a win, but Denmark stand to benefit immensely from a victory. The Danes would move up 2 spots to 55th if they win narrowly, and if they win by more than 15 points, they would move up to 54th. If the Swedes were to lose by that large margin, they would drop down all the way to 37th. Lastly, let's take a look at the Men's Rugby Europe Conference, where there's 3 games taking place. The first is Moldova versus Turkey. Now, Moldova haven't played a game yet in the tournament. This is their first game, and they will be trying to get over the bitter disappointment of missing out on promotion to the trophy last year when they lost against Denmark. In comparison, and conversely, Turkey have already played 2 games in this year's competition and lost both of them. The last time these 2 teams played, Moldova won convincingly 43-13, and if they were to repeat the feat this time, it would do nothing for them in the rankings. Interestingly, because the gap in the rankings between teams at that level of the rankings is so small, if they were to lose, they would drop down 12 places. Just to put that into context, Denmark, who are ranked 57th, and Turkey in 85th, only have a gap of 9 ranking points. The second game we'll be looking at is Andorra versus Malta. Both teams come into the clash on the back of a win. Andorra defeated Israel and Malta defeated Cyprus. The last time these 2 teams played each other, Malta came out on the winning side 10-3. If Malta were to repeat the trick this weekend, they would move up 1 spot. Andorra could climb up 5 places to 74th if they were to win this match, and they could rise to 72nd if they win by more than 15 points. Malta would move down to 54th if they were to win by that margin. The last game we'll be talking about today is Hungary versus Austria. Now, Austria come into the game on the back of 2 successive victories, while Hungary come into the game on the back of 2 successive losses. Austria dominated their last game, winning 39-12, and if they were to do the same on Saturday, they would move up 7 spots to 65th. So that wraps up the previews for this weekend. 6 games taking place, a lot of entertainment and a lot of action across the rugby European landscape. Most of these games you will be able to watch on Rugby Europe TV. The link of that will be down in the description. If you enjoyed this content, please subscribe, but also please go to our website where we have the predictor that you can use yourself to see how the fixtures and their results will affect the rankings. We've also published a blog that looks at the legend and the myth of the Wales number 10 jersey, names like Cliff Morgan, David Watkins and Barry John. If you like that sort of content, please go and read our blog series. Thank you again for watching the Rugby Store and YouTube channel. We'll see you next time. Ciao.